It's a new record. Wow! Nice! Whoa! Right on! Yeah! Wow! Nice! Yeah! Looks great! Whoa! Right on! Wow! There it is! Yeah! Whoa! Nice! Wow! Looks great! Whoa! Nice! Yeah! Keep it up! Whoa! Nice! Wow! Whoa! Right on! Yeah! Looks great! Wow! Yeah! Nice! Wow! Yeah! Right on! Wow! Whoa! Looks great! Wow! Yeah! Right on! Whoa! Looks great! Yeah! Nice! Whoa! Nice jump! Yeah! Great air! Whoa! Nice jump! Wow! Amazing! Whoa! Incredible! Excellent! Yeah! Whoa! Nice! Wow! Right on! Whoa! Nice! Wow! There it is! Whoa! Nice jump! Wow! It's a new record! Yeah! Looks great! Wow! Right on! Whoa! Wow! Looks great! Yeah! Right on! Whoa! Wow! Looks great! Yeah! Nice! Wow! Looks great! Yeah! Nice! Wow! Looks great! Whoa! Nice! Yeah! Right on! Wow! Yeah! Nice! Wow! Looks great! Whoa! Right on! Yeah! Great air! Wow! Whoa! Yeah! Looks great! Wow! Nice! Yeah! Looks great! Whoa! Nice jump! Yeah! There it is! Whoa! Great air! Yeah! Looks great! Whoa! Nice! Yeah! Right on! Whoa! Great air! There it is! Nice jump! Wow! There it is! Yeah! Excellent! Whoa! Keep it up! Wow! Nice! Whoa! Wow! Looks great! Whoa! Right on! Yeah! Nice! Whoa! Keep it up! Yeah! Great air! Nice jump! Wow! There it is! Yeah! Whoa! Nice! Wow! Right on! Whoa! Looks great! Yeah! Nice jump! Whoa! There it is! Yeah! Nice jump! It's a new record! Wow! Way to go! Yeah! Right on! Wow! Whoa! Looks great! Wow! Nice! Yeah! Looks great! Whoa! Wow! Nice! Yeah! Looks great! Wow! Nice! Whoa! Nice! Yeah! Wow! There you go. Whoa! Nice! Yeah! Looks great! Wow! Right on! Yeah! Great air! Wow! Nice jump! Whoa! Yeah! Nice! Whoa! Right on! Wow! Looks great! Yeah! Whoa! Right on! Wow! Yeah! Looks great! Whoa! Nice! Wow! Whoa! Looks great! Yeah! Nice! Wow! Yeah! Right on! Whoa! Wow! Nice! Yeah! Looks great! Wow! Right on! Yeah! Nice! Wow! Whoa! Right on! Wow! Whoa! Nice! Wow! Looks great! Whoa! Wow! Nice! Whoa! Congratulations! Yeah! Whoa! Looks great! Yeah! Nice! Whoa! It's a new record. Whoa! Looks great! Wow! Nice! Yeah! Right on! Wow! There it is! Yeah! Great air! Wow! Whoa! Keep it up! Wow! Right on! Yeah! Nice! Whoa! Looks great! Yeah! Nice jump! Whoa! Nice! Wow! Looks great! Yeah! Right on! Wow! Great air! Whoa! Yeah! Looks great! Wow! Nice! Whoa! Right on! Yeah! Great air! Whoa! Nice jump! Wow! Nice! Whoa! Looks great! Wow! Right on! Yeah! There it is! Wow! Nice jump! Yeah! There it is! Whoa! Wow! Right on! Yeah! Nice! Whoa! Looks great! Yeah! Great air! Whoa! There it is! Wow! Great air! Whoa! Yeah! Wow! Right on! It's a new record! Whoa! Wow! Nice! Yeah! Looks great! Wow! Right on! Yeah! Great air! Whoa! There it is! means a new... You did it! Whoa! Right on! Wow! Nice! Whoa! Right on! Wow! There it is! Whoa! Great air! Yeah! Nice jump! Whoa! Wow! Looks great! Yeah! Wow! Whoa! Right on! Wow! Whoa! Looks great! Wow! Yeah! Right on! Wow! Nice! Whoa! Right on! Wow! Yeah! Nice! Whoa! Right on! Wow! Yeah! Looks great! Wow! Nice! Whoa! Right on! Wow! Nice! Yeah! Right on! Wow! Nice! Whoa! Nice jump! Wow! Looks great! Whoa! Wow! Right on! Yeah! Looks great! Wow! Nice! Whoa! Yeah! Whoa! Looks great! Yeah! Wow! Nice! Yeah! Looks great! Whoa! There you go! Wow! Right on! Whoa! Nice! Right on! Wow! There it is! Whoa! Wow! Right on! Whoa! Nice! Yeah! Looks great! Whoa! Right on! Nice! Wow! There it is! Whoa! Nice jump! Wow! There it is! Yeah! Excellent! Wow! Nice! Yeah! Looks great! Whoa! Right on! Wow! There it is! Yeah! Right on! Nice! Whoa! Looks great! Yeah! Nice jump! Wow! Great air! Whoa! Wow! Looks great! Yeah! Right on! Wow! Looks great! Whoa! Yeah! Nice! Whoa! Right on! Nice! Wow! Nice jump! Whoa! There it is! Yeah! Nice jump! Wow! Whoa! Nice! Yeah! Right on! Wow! Looks great! Yeah! Great air! Wow! Nice jump! Yeah! Great air! Whoa! Yeah! Looks great! Whoa! Nice! Wow! Looks great! Whoa! Great air! Yeah! Nice jump! Whoa! Yeah! Nice! Looks great! Whoa! Right on! Yeah! Great air! Whoa! Yeah! Looks great! Wow! Right on! Whoa! Nice! Wow! There it is! Nice jump! Whoa! Wow! Looks great! Yeah! Nice! Whoa! Looks great! Wow! Nice jump! Whoa! Great air! Yeah! It's a new record! Yeah! Right on! Whoa! Looks great! Wow! Right on! Yeah! Nice! Whoa! There it is! Wow! Nice jump! Whoa! Great air! Yeah! Whoa! Right on! Yeah! Whoa! Nice! Right, yeah! Nice! Wow! There it is! Whoa! Nice jump! Wow! Great air! Whoa! Amazing! Wow! Incredible! Yeah! Whoa! Right on! Wow! Nice! Whoa! Right on! Wow! Great air! Yeah! Right on! Wow! Looks great! Whoa! Right on! Yeah! Nice! Wow! Whoa! Right on! Wow! Nice! Yeah! Right on! Wow! Great air! Yeah! There it is! Wow! Whoa! Nice! Wow! Right on! Yeah! Looks great! Whoa! Nice jump! Wow! There it is! Yeah! Nice! Wow! Right on! Nice! Whoa! There it is! Wow! Nice! Yeah! Right on! Whoa! Looks great! Wow! Whoa! Right on! Yeah! Nice! Wow! Looks great! Yeah! Nice! Wow! There it is! Yeah! Nice jump! Wow! Yeah! Nice! Wow! Whoa! Right on! Yeah! Nice! Looks great! Whoa! Nice jump! Yeah! Great air! Whoa! Nice jump! Yeah! Whoa! Nice! Yeah! Yeah! Nice! Wow! Looks great! Yeah! Right on! Wow! Great air! Whoa! Nice jump! Yeah! There it is! Whoa! Wow! There you go! Whoa! Nice! Yeah! Looks great! Whoa! Right on! Yeah! There it is! Wow! Great air! Whoa! There it is! Yeah! Whoa! Nice! Wow! Right on! Yeah! Looks great! Wow! Right on! Yeah! Nice! Wow! Right on! Yeah! Great air! Wow! Nice jump! Yeah! Great air! Wow! Excellent! Yeah! Wow! Looks great! Whoa! Right on! Yeah! Looks great! Whoa! Nice jump! Yeah! Great air! Whoa! There it is! Yeah! Incredible! Whoa! Yeah! Looks great! Wow! Right on! Whoa! Yeah! Nice! Wow! Right on! Yeah! Looks great! Wow! a new record. Wow! Nice! Right on! Yeah! Nice! Whoa! There it is! Yeah! Great air! Whoa! There it is! Yeah! Excellent! Wow! Whoa! Looks great! Wow! Nice! Yeah! Wow! Right on! Yeah! Nice! Wow! Right on! Yeah! Great air! Whoa! There it is! Wow! Nice jump! Whoa! Yeah! Nice! Whoa! Right on! Wow! Looks great! Whoa! Nice jump! Yeah! Great air! Wow! Nice jump! Whoa! Incredible! Wow! Amazing! Yeah! Whoa! Nice! Wow! Right on! Yeah! Looks good! Whoa! Great air! Wow! There it is! Whoa! Great air! Wow! Amazing! Whoa! Right on! Yeah! Wow! Nice! Whoa! Looks great! Yeah! Right on! Wow! Great air! Whoa! There it is! Yeah! Nice jump! Whoa! Yeah! Nice! Whoa! Looks great! Nice! Nice jump! Yeah! Wow! Nice! Looks great! Yeah! Nice! Whoa! Nice jump! Wow! There it is! Nice jump! Whoa! Incredible! Yeah! Wow! Looks great! Yeah! Nice! Whoa! Looks great! Wow! Right on! Yeah! There it is! Nice! Wow! There it is! Whoa! Yeah! Right on! Whoa! Nice! Looks great! Wow! Nice jump! Whoa! There it is! Yeah! Nice jump! Wow! Amazing! Whoa! Wow! Right on! Whoa! Nice! Yeah! Looks great! Wow! Great air! Whoa! Nice jump! Wow! Great air! Whoa! Amazing! Yeah! Wow! Nice! Yeah! Right on! Whoa! Looks great! Yeah! Right on! Wow! Yeah! Nice! Looks great! Wow! Nice! Yeah! Nice jump! Whoa! There it is! Wow! Nice jump! Whoa! Amazing! Yeah! Right on! Wow! Looks great! Whoa! Right on! There it is! Yeah! Nice jump! Wow! Yeah! Nice! Whoa! Wow! Looks great! Nice! Yeah! Right on! Wow! There it is! Whoa! Great air! Yeah! Wow! Right! Whoa! Looks great! Yeah! Nice! Whoa! Looks great! Yeah! Nice! Wow! Right on! Whoa! There it is! Yeah! Great air! Wow! Yeah! Keep it up! Wow! Right on! Whoa! Nice! Wow! Right on! Yeah! Great air! Whoa! Nice jump! Yeah! There it is! Whoa! Nice! Yeah! Wow! Right on! Whoa! Yeah! Looks great! Wow! Right on! Whoa! Looks great! Yeah! There you go. Whoa! Looks great! Wow! Nice! Whoa! Looks great! Yeah! Nice! Looks great! Wow! Nice jump! Whoa! There it is! Great air! Yeah! Excellent! Wow! Looks great! Whoa! Nice! Yeah! Right on! Wow! Looks great! Whoa! Right on! Yeah! Nice! Wow! Whoa! Looks great! Yeah! Nice! Whoa! Right on! Yeah! There it is! Wow! Nice! Right on! Whoa! Nice! Yeah! Nice jump! Whoa! Great air! Yeah! Nice jump! Wow! Yeah! Nice! Whoa! Looks great! Wow! Right on! Yeah! There it is! Wow! Nice jump! Yeah! There it is! Whoa! Yeah! Right on! Whoa! Looks great! Yeah! Nice! Whoa! There it is! Yeah! Great air! Whoa! There it is! Yeah! Incredible! Wow! Excellent! Whoa! Wow! Nice! Yeah! Looks great! Wow! Right on! There it is! Whoa! Nice jump! Yeah! Wow! Looks great! Nice! Yeah! Right on! Wow! Great air! Yeah! There it is! Whoa! Wow! Nice! Yeah! Looks great! Whoa! Nice! It's a new record! Pro Class!